evening and welcome to the July 22nd edition of Beyond the Headlines. I'm your host, Colin Dowe, and I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, whether you're in your living rooms, in your bedrooms, driving in your car, looking at GBN television, listening on radio, or any of the social media platforms. Our program is made by you and it is made for you, so thank you very much for being with us. This evening we're going to be doing some investigating of our own, and we're going to be looking at the gun amnesty that has been implemented by government. As you're aware, a couple of months ago this was announced, and this is what we're going to be delving into. As it stands now, we're 1 week away from the expiration of gun amnesty, and it's a good time to get an update and probably give some motivation to some of you who might be able to assist in this very important initiative. The guest this evening joining us is Senator Claudia Joseph, who is our Attorney General. We have Assistant Commissioner of Police, Vannie Cowan, and our Crime Reduction Specialist, Dr. Niels Chaitan. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Good evening.
It still is evening.
Thanks.
Absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure having you all and having you on to discuss, not at the end, but approaching the end of this important initiative that has been launched by government. Senator Joseph, allow me to start off with you and just to reflect on what prompted this initiative of a gun amnesty by government.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Dowe, and good evening to you and all of the viewers of Beyond the Headline. It's good to be back here. I don't think I've ever been with you.
It's our first time. I was going to get that. I don't believe you're avoiding me, but you know.
But I have been on the program quite a number of times, and it's always good to be back with GBN. I mean, we all know what has been happening in the region with regard to the rise in gun-related offenses. And for a while, Grenada appeared to be immune or spared of this scourge. And recently, we witnessed a significant rise in gun-related offenses. More persons were being arrested by the police for possession. And then, of course, we had an increase in actual offenses involving firearms, some of which, unfortunately, claimed the lives of our citizens, of some of our citizens. And looking at what happened in other jurisdictions nearby, our neighbors, and getting the sense that things had gotten somewhat out of control in those jurisdictions, we thought it prudent to address the situation head-on and to take active steps to ensure that we as government do all in our power to help to curb the use of guns, the offenses related to firearms, and particularly illegal firearms. And we looked at our legislative regime and saw that there was some inefficiencies there, some deficiencies, and we thought that this was our duty, our obligation to do something to preserve the peaceful nature of our society and to protect the lives and livelihoods of our citizens.
What were some of the terms that encompass the surrender? So there's an amnesty. What are the terms?
So the Firearms Act, as it was before April of this year, actually didn't even contain a provision for an amnesty to take place. So it didn't contemplate an amnesty at all. So the first thing we did was to amend the Firearms Act to allow the minister to declare an amnesty in appropriate circumstances. The main one being if it's in the interest of the public to do so, and that's the opinion reform. So we went to Parliament in April and inserted the provision in the the Firearms Act that allowed for the amnesty. And then after that brought into force the regulations that govern the amnesty. And as you know, most of the viewers will know, the amnesty was put in place for 90 days, from May 1st to July 30th. And so, as you said, we are in the last week of the amnesty. And under the regulations, any person possessing an illegal firearms may surrender that firearm to the police. And once the amnesty is taken advantage of, the person is indemnified or spared from prosecution of any of the offenses under the Firearms Act. And of course, not just the firearm, but the ammunition as well, right? So, surrender to the nearest police station. The key thing is that the amnesty is conducted in a situation of anonymity, so that no one is linked to a firearm that is surrendered. It's completely anonymous, so you would not be tied to the firearms once you surrender it. You may use the regulations provide for a person wanting to surrender the firearm to use the attorney at law, for example, as an agent to surrender the firearm or ammunition. There is no, if you are in the process of or en route to surrendering the firearm and you are caught with it, you will not be charged under the Firearms Act.
Just to develop on that one, is there a manner in which surrendered firearms are to be packaged, which can say to a police officer, this is en route to be surrendered, as opposed to be en route to be doing something else?
There's no prescribed manner in the legislation, but the defense could be, I was en route.
And that's where I'm going, because in other jurisdictions...
But not defense, or explanation, because you wouldn't be brought to the point where you have to
in other jurisdictions, they say it must be packaged either in paper, in plastic, taped, secured, no bullets in the actual gun. Those should be packaged separately. Those are that's the manner defined for surrender in some jurisdictions. So I'm just asking whether in Grenada, whether it was contemplated.
I don't think we did. We went into those details.
I was just trying for somebody who not to just use that as a loophole. So, after being caught saying I was trying to surrender.
If you're going to have a week.
Okay.
After a week, you would be able to say that.
Well, of course. Okay. All right. And so just my final question to you before I move on to ACP Colin. As government would have contemplated this amnesty, what was your definition of success? You must say that this is the goal, or one or two of the goals that we are attempting to accomplish.
The way we looked at it, if one weapon was surrendered, a weapon that could potentially have been used in the commission of an offense, we would consider that a success. Just saving one life or limb, or protecting or safeguarding one person's property from being vandalized or stolen with the use of a firearm. So for us, one firearm surrender is success.
Okay. ACP Colin, how many gun-related homicides do we have? And I hope you have these numbers off the top of your head in 2024. I know because, Senator Joseph spoke of the discomfort, and I'll use that word very lightly, that occurred within the nation by the number of gun-related crimes that we were seeing, inclusive of homicides. But as we were to reflect, how many homicides have we had to date in 2024?
Let me take the opportunity to greet your viewing and listening public and say it's a pleasure to be here once again. And unfortunately, I do not have the statistics on top of my head. I have it on a board in my office because I keep the stats because I'm responsible for crimes. But we do have a number of gun-related deaths. I think they're in excess of 3 or 4, if my memory serves me right. I do not want to quantify definitively.
That's fine.
For fear that
compared 2023, 2024.
Oh, definitely we've had more in 2024 than we've had in 2023.
Okay.
I think 2024 we might have seen the most gun-related deaths in comparison to any previous years, and that's a cause for concern because the years prior to that, consider our murders, we have had murders by other means, mainly the cutlasses that has been what we have been known for.
Right.
In the last year or two, we've seen a deviation from that, and we have seen a propensity and a likeness for the guns, and apart from the gun-related deaths that we have had quite a lot of gun-related incidents, gun-related crimes. Many of them did not arrive to the issue of death, but we could have very well have in excess of 10, 12, or 15, because we've had a number of shootings where people actually survived. If those shootings were converted into death, then you could have seen an increase in the numbers. But fortunate for us, we are where we are at. We have had a number of successes getting a lot of these guns off the street. The amnesty helped in some way. Senator Joseph said that if we had one, we've had success. Well, we've had more than success in that sense.
All right. 82 days of amnesty thus far was 90 days. So we're 8 days away from the conclusion. Give us some indication. You will not have exact figures, I understand that, as to the number of guns that would have been surrendered as a result of the amnesty.
Let me put it this way. We have seized in May and June far more illegal firearms that was turned into us during the amnesty. We would have liked to have a lot more, but our numbers is not significant, but we are satisfied. In fact, as Senator Joseph said, one is enough. We have had a lot more than one, but our successes in fighting crime the way we do, using the intelligence that we gather, has given us greater success in finding illegal firearms than firearms that were voluntarily turned into us.
Forgive me, but I think your news reports say you probably seized about 35 firearms or made arrests for illegal possession, circa 35. Yeah. If you're saying you've had more success there than you've had with surrenders, it means that the number of guns turned in is less than 35.
Well, you can deduce that from what I have said, well, yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So my next question then would be one of the type of guns that we're seeing. And that too is important. What type of weapons and who is it coming from? But the type of weapons just in terms of the surrender.
We would have liked to see a lot more AR-15 coming in. Those are the kind of street weapons that are really deadly, semi-automatic. In the crime world, those are sought-after weapons, and we would have liked to have a few of those being surrendered. Fortunately, we haven't. But we've seen .22, we have seen .38, we have seen 9mm. Those type of pistols have been surrendered to us. We would have liked to see 1 or 2 AR-15. It would have given us more comfort that we're taking some of the more deadly weapons off the street. We have not seen those. We continue to pursue those. We're working in very good intelligence in that sense, and hence the reason why you could talk about 35, because our intelligence is working, our people is working with us to get us what we want. It's a collaborative effort and shared responsibility here to make sure that we keep Grenada safe, and we're doing pretty fine where that is concerned. But we're keeping our eyes on the more deadly weapons and trying to get at those before those continue to wreak, the kind of havoc we do not want to see on our streets.
Okay. Share with us, because I want to make a distinction between an illegal weapon and an unregistered weapon. And for clarity of the audience, you may wish to, but I'll give my Bushman lawyer definition of it. So the distinction I'm making for the unregistered weapon may be someone who legally obtained a firearm and have not registered it over a period of time, or someone legally obtained a firearm, they may have passed away, and the family was still in possession of it. Their possession of it now makes it, of course, illegal, but it's really an unregistered firearm, which is different from one that never went through the the legal system or the police for registration, etc. What is the balance between illegal and unregistered?
I understand your analogy of the two, but it's basically semantics here. An illegal firearm is unregistered.
Yes, but I'm making the distinction between one that was previously registered, right, and may have been obtained, may have been theft or something like that, and one that never came through the RGBF system. And I'm asking whether you have some distinction between the balance between both, because there is a paper trail for an unregistered weapon that was previously registered. There was an owner that you knew of.
Yes.
Then there's a gun that shows up that you have no records of in Grenada.
So that one will be unregistered as well, and illegal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So your distinction is correct.
Yeah. So that's I'm just trying to get a sense as to what type of breakdown, if you can, anecdotally again, of the returns.
What we are seeing, I think there is one case that I remember vividly that a registered firearm was turned into us. In that case, using the analogy that you have given, that was a legal firearm that was owned and registered by someone who passed away, and that firearm was left in a particular house that is now occupied by somebody and who turned that firearm in.
Right.
In that case, that's a registered firearm, so that was turned into us. Most of what we were seeing though was illegal firearms, firearms that there was no paper trail for. Right? It was never registered in Grenada. It's illegal to be on our streets. There was no license for it. Though most of those that have been turned into us fits into this particular category.
Okay. The other question I would have for you, again anecdotally, but the age of the firearms. Are we getting new technologically advanced weapons? I know not the AR-15s or as many AR-15s as you would like, but as old rusty guns that,
there's a mixture.
Give a bullet.
There's a mixture of both, because 9mm is standard operating, standard firearms now for most law enforcement agencies, and we've gotten a few 9mm. I think we have a 1.30, which is another standard issue. So we are seeing some modern weapons, but yes, we have also have some .22 that might not be functional because it probably has been sitting wherever it was for a period of time. So there's a mixture of what we consider to be new and old.
Okay. And your collection points, police stations across the island?
Police stations across the island, police headquarters.
And police headquarters.
Yes.
And of course, for viewers, that remains true for the next 8 days. Well, 7.5 days now.
but I want to stress that point, Colin. I don't know if that's a question that would come at some point. Notwithstanding the fact that there are designated locations for the submission of these firearms, we have had an experience or situation, and I want to allude to it tonight and encourage it. There are people who might know of illegal or unregistered firearm, who may want to turn that firearm in, but might be fearful to do so in person. So it's illegal, you want to turn it in, but you don't want to be associated with it. We have had a situation where an individual has said to us, listen, go into a particular place, there is a particular package, there is a firearm in it that I want to turn in. I don't want to be known, I don't want to be seen. That we encourage as well. It's not the ideal practice. We'll prefer if you bring that firearm in, and for the simple reason, before we get to it, somebody else may, and that's an illegal firearm on the street. But if that's the means by which you're comfortable getting that firearm into safe hands, then that's a means that we welcome. Because key for us is getting that illegal firearm off the street, and it doesn't matter how we get it, but getting it is what we want to do. So that's an avenue that has been used in one case, and if you feel, if you don't want to personally bring it into the police station or bring it in through a lawyer, if you use that means and we get the firearm, we're grateful for the fact that that firearm is in safe hands.
Okay. Any indication, because again it's an island-wide surrender, so can you give us an indication as to how the returns, or the the submissions, it's not returned because you must have had it in the first place, right? How has it been going, let's say by parish or by month? How did May look compared to June, compared to July? Was there an initial rush in May, slowed down, and we do expect a spike now that we're in July? Are we seeing more, surrendering taking place in St. Andrew as compared to St. Mark? What's the situation?
By parish, I don't know that I have the data as I speak by parish, but what I can tell you is that over the last 3 months or so, we have seen a spread. Initially, when the amnesty started in May, it was kind of slow. In fact, we were kind of concerned whether or not we were going to receive any firearms. But as the month of May come and went on, and June and July, we start seeing an increase in, an uptick in the amount. I would say June and July has been our two most successful months for what we have received.
Okay. Has any of the firearms surrendered led to any advances in ongoing criminal cases that you may have had?
I want to be careful how I answer that question, because I don't want my answer to deter anybody from bringing a firearm in. So I want to be careful how I see that. I don't know at this point that we have made any connection between any firearms that were surrendered to us and any ongoing investigation. And by the very nature of the amnesty, I know at some point that perhaps may be an issue, but I don't think that is what we want to focus on now. We want to focus on getting the illegal firearms off the street rather than having the apprehension in the minds of people that if I bring that firearm in and it turns out that something happened to that firearm, the police might be coming back at me. That fear we want to quell at this point.
Forgive me for asking, but quell at this point doesn't mean that the fear will be quelled. But I would leave it for now. I would necessarily come back to it, as you will understand. But let's bring Niels in, and we're talking about gun amnesty. From your experience as a crime reduction expert, have gun amnesty worked?
I couldn't tell you I've worked in any jurisdiction where it has. And by the way, thank you so much for having me on your program, and for the viewers out there, it's good to be here with you lovely people. But I know for a fact in Toronto, where I spent most of my life, there was a gun amnesty a couple of decades ago, and the method we used to encourage the holders of illegal firearms to bring it in, it was a buyback method, right? Where they were paid for the firearm, and they got quite a bit surrendered. As a matter of fact, they even turned into me, and I had turned in too. So as I've said over and over several times, to get the kind of success you want in a gun amnesty, it would be one or two things. One, conviction, or two, reward. When we are able to convince a young person or a group of young people that it doesn't make sense, that this is going to cut somebody's life short. This is going to damage someone's dream. This is going to make someone's mom cry. This is going to make a little girl, a little boy without a father. Right? When you're able to get to the heart and convince them on the block. I mean, I was on the block today, and by the way, let me say hi to the guys from 1-2. We're just sitting on the block talking about gun and gun amnesty today, right? And when you convince a young person that this just doesn't make sense, right? And you reach a point of conviction, they'll be more likely to say, you know what, man, I better get rid of this thing, If we don't reach conviction, then a worthwhile reward might help. Because when you look at it, Mr. Dowe, for someone to, if we're looking at rival factions, right? I got my gun to protect my back. Right. Whatever that means. Yeah. Whether it's the illegal drug trade, what it is, right? And if I surrender mine, then my back is empty, and someone is armed. Then I become vulnerable, right? So there are a number of reasons why people may not want to turn it in. I think it would take a lot of coercion, and so I really want to, as we say, to use a later big up the Grenada Bar Association. You probably have heard about their peace initiative. I'm very much involved with it, very, very much involved with it. And we have been coining phrases and videos to encourage people to turn it in. it's a better thing to do. Somebody asked me, Dr. Chadden, what is the repercussion? What about the pain and trauma? It's unbelievable. When you pull the trigger, man, I have a slogan I use in Toronto. One bullet makes two mothers cry. Because sometimes we think about the person who
lost their life,
and how, what about the little boy that doesn't have a dad, or a little girl, or the mom who lost a son? But what about the other mother too? Because with draconian order, draconian measures, that boy might be gone away for 40 years.
Right.
There's another father going in with a little boy and a little girl also. I mean, I work in a school sometimes, and it's painful. It's painful because I also work in the jails. Mm-hmm. It's painful when you go to a school and a little girl said to you, Dr. Chadden, you go to the prison? I say, yeah. Could you say hi to my dad, please? I'm in tears, right? So it caused a lot of trauma, and if we could get to the heart, and that's what the GBA, Greener Bar Association, there's a method that we're using right now. The first thing we do is to blitz the nation with anti-gun slogans and what have you, encouraging people to turn it in, right? But what's the other step to that? Then we must go in there and talk to these feudal factions, right? Mm-hmm. Show them why it doesn't make sense. Guy, you're only 26. I mean, is that all you got? You have no dream? Like I told them in Montu, we are burying good organs, man. People are looking for kidneys and hearts. No, serious. I mean, we laugh about it. Right. But we are burying good organs. I said, I want to buy you, man. I'll buy you, And I was joking about that, right? But when people are young bodies are being buried, right? So I think we have to reach the point with a psychoeducation, and I'm happy to let you. That's where I'm involved.
We certainly want to delve into that a little bit more, but from what I'm gathering from what you said, we need to change hearts and minds. You mentioned by way of success and motivation, one would be convictions or the reward in terms of the buyback. Grenada did not contemplate a buyback, and Grenada is not the only regional territory that did not contemplate that. But from your experience, who turns in a gun? I mean, as you look at the stats, whether we're looking at Toronto or from your own studies regionally, who would be that individual to turn in a gun?
The person that would turn in a gun would be the person that would see, again, as I said, the worth. A gun is a dangerous weapon. A matter of fact, a gun was devised, was invented to take a life, really. Mm-hmm. And we heard the Prime Minister said over and over, by the way, the gun was invented to take a life, right? I didn't give a life, right? But more than that, even if I take your life, what happened to my life is wrecked. So the person that I get guns turned into, I'm talking the Toronto situation, not here, right? Yeah. People that have found themselves, people that I've worked with, I've intervened with. I said, look, guy, that doesn't make sense. Do you know where I see your life going? Because I'm doing an inventory of the skills, the talents. Do you know you could be one of the greatest plumbers, man? Do you know, you like to make people laugh, man? Do you know there's something called humor therapy? That you could actually make people laugh and get paid for it? I said, wow, a bulb went in, man. You don't have to, because the gun is a sign of power. A sign of power. The power that you may not have gotten from your socialization. Probably there was no dad there. Probably there was an abusive mom. I don't know. That took your power away. And now you're at a point where you got the weapon in your hand. Right? And let's not even go to the audiovisual signals out there, the video games that are all about jumping and chasing and killing. Right? And we say to ourselves, wait, that doesn't really influence it. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You see little children with a gun finger up. finding their cars playing in the streets, right?
Yeah, we want to say that probably there are other changes because a lot of us grew up shooting Bobo, but never really, well, some of us joined the Royal Grenada Police Force, but haven't taken it alive. But I certainly want to get back to you and as we delve more into the benefits of gun amnesty. But viewers, it is time for us to take our first break, so we'll be right back. We're speaking gun amnesty this evening.
Have you heard about the new Soft Weave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Soft Weave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue. Available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Soft Weave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
Are you looking for a reliable, affordable, and customer-friendly pharmacy? Look no further than Hills and Valley Pharmacy, the nation's leading healthcare products and services provider. We are committed to serving you at convenient locations. Find an extensive and affordable selection of prescription and over-the-counter drugs and medical supplies at Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, Jubilee Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, near the bus terminal, and Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George. Our committed team is always available to offer valuable assistance for managing your health and wellness. Discover the additional benefits of our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street and our Medcare Center on Grenville Street, where we provide in-house physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctor consultations, and eye care services. Our commitment is to satisfy all your healthcare needs, including competitive prices, loyalty rewards, and special discounts for seniors. Contact us at 435-6904 and WhatsApp 535-4734. Choose Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Remember, your health is our business.
Spend $50 or more at any Hubbard's department or participating outlets for a chance to win free fuel, free drinks, free prizes, free property and vehicular insurance, free Hub TV and internet, free electricity, free coke, free water, free cooking gas, free paint supplies, free Dutch Lady milk, free passes to Sunshine promotion events for 2024, free groceries, all for 1 whole year. And every winner receives a free lunch package. But that's not all. Drive away in style in a brand new Isuzu D-Max. It sips, it doesn't guzzle. So fill out your entries and place them into the marked entry boxes. This promotion is brought to you in part by Dutch Lady, Danny, Promo, Supreme Bleach, Creative Chef, Grenlac, Floor, Salt Petroleum, Grenadian General Insurance Company Limited, Coca-Cola, Sunshine Promotion, Caribberies, Coop Bag, Sesame Spain, and Food Fear. Promotion runs from April 2nd to December 24. Terms and conditions apply.
Paying is faster and easier with Flow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press Consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Flow, keeping you connected.
What if you had a choice? A choice of joining a line or a choice of making your purchases online? What would you choose? While you ponder on that, the National Lotteries Authority has provided another purchasing option. All their games are now available online. Yes, Grenadians, from wherever you are, purchase your favorite daily and jackpot type games using any electronic device. Register on the NLA's website at www.nla.gd. Top up your account and enjoy online lottery gaming at your convenience. We're taking shopping comfort up several notches. But the choice is yours. Join a line or buy online. NLA, make your dreams come true.
Welcome back, viewers. We are speaking gun amnesty this evening, and thank you so very much for continuing on with us. Niels, you were talking just before you left as to who will surrender. The government of Guyana in January, the Vice President, Barajagdio, says, we're not going to walk the gun amnesty route. We don't believe it works. Early on in July, former Grenada Commissioner of Police, now Turks and Caicos Islands Commissioner of Police, Edwin Martin, and his Assistant Commissioner, along with the Dean of Superintendents, were doing an interview speaking of gun amnesty. And the Superintendent Dean actually was quite clear, he's British, saying this doesn't work. We will get some of the guns that license would have lapsed, but the criminals turn in their guns, we do expect it to happen. How do you respond to those claims? One, we initiated this amnesty in Grenada, and why do you believe Grenada is different and can experience different successes from what, being said, Guyana, TCI, and the experiences of some other territories?
Well, the truth about it is, if we use the benchmark that Ms. Joseph here set up, and of course Mr. Cohen set up, and that is using that if we get one gun in, it's success, right? Then we would have succeeded, right? But of course, the same Commissioner of Police, that was the former Commissioner of Police of Grenada, now Commissioner of Police for TCI. I remember just about a year ago or more, in a summit of Commissioner of Police in Trinidad, where it was all hailed that the enforcement aspect doesn't work. Or it's not as effective, and so we need a softer approach, right? And it was noise all over CARICOM that we need a softer approach. I was working in St. Lucia that year when I went to work there. St. Lucia closed the year before with 75 homicides, and closed the year I went to work in 2023 76, and they realized that they were losing the war also on illegal firearms. So what did they do? They brought in a softer approach. They brought in the social, where we go in and speak to the hearts of
and this is where I want to get you. What are the root causes for the possession of illegal firearms in Grenada regionally? Because I think for us to have success, we need to tackle with the root causes.
Right. But and I think I alluded to that a little early on, right? We have to go back to the basics. And that's why whenever I do a program, there must be three components of the program: the prevention, the intervention, and the rehabilitation. Okay? The prevention, of course, with the starting from the home. If we do not socialize our children right, if a young man doesn't know who he is, that he has born qualities of a leader in him, then of course he's at a deficit, right? I wrote an article in 2017. It was published by Caribbean News Now out of Texas, and in 2023 it was republished by No Grenada. It was then captioned "There Are No Bad Boys."
Yeah.
It was republished by No Grenada as "Indeed, There Are No Bad Boys." And when you look at what we have, despite all the social dysfunctions we see with young men, and why do I say young men? Because, Mr. Dowe, I've worked across the Caribbean. When I worked in St. Kitts and Nevis, the prison is on Keon Street. Mm-hmm. That prison was built for about 169 people, right? And it was like loaded, close to 300. And there were only about 5 women. Mm-hmm. I went to Bordelais in St. Lucia. That prison had 501. And 497 were men. Take our situation here. Mm-hmm. The last numbers I got was 494. And that prison was also built for about less than 200 people. Right? And out of the 494, 490 are men. Okay? So it tells you there's something that is lacking. It's lacking. I wish I could have tapped into the article to tell you what it is. Right? Because when a boy grows up, not knowing who he is, not knowing his foundation, where he's from. When I was growing up in Grenville, I had a strange name, Chiton. I mean, it wasn't Williams, it wasn't Dowe. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Colin.
Dowe probably was strange as well.
Right? This was Chiton. Yeah. Where is that name coming from? But my dad told me who my grandfather was and what life he lived. Mm-hmm. My dad went to England, studied to be a watchmaker. Well, one of the only certified watchmakers. He said to you, "You're a Chiton boy. When you go there, walk like a Chiton, behave like a Chiton." Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But when a young person doesn't have that, to develop the leadership in them, they're losing the power. When they a gang, or somebody says, "I'll do this for you," or "I'll mentor you," and they put a weapon in their hand. This is power, my brother. This is power, right? So,
yeah. Senator Joseph, let me come to you, and this one is probably a ticklish one, but we have to go there. At the start of the program, you were on record highlighting that guns will be processed for being in connection with crimes. So the amnesty addresses possession, but it does not necessarily mean that the guns will be discarded without being processed, and the possibility of crimes committed by that gun being prosecuted eventually. Do you believe, upon reflection, that pronouncement came a little bit too early and may have impacted the success of the turn-in of guns?
No, I don't think so, because that is in fact part of the regulation that's actually published. Mm-hmm. To me, that was transparency, openness, explaining to the people in the Houses of Parliament all of the facets of the amendment that was being proposed at the level of the Parliament. The key thing, though, is the anonymity. So when you turn in the weapon itself is not connected with whoever turns it in. It is subsequently, and I guess
the ACP?
I guess ACP can tell us some more about the actual process that occurs at the point of delivery of the firearm. Mm-hmm. But it is not, so at the point when it is processed, it is not at that point connected with any person. Okay. So even if a firearm is processed, because it happens in all cases of amnesty, where the firearm is tagged, the make, and so it's recorded and whatnot. Ballistics testing would be done. Mm-hmm. So there is really no jeopardy. Right. And as I said, to your question of timing, the timing was at the point where the instrument was being debated, and all aspects of it was being debated.
Do you believe that government, Royal Grenada Police Force, did a good enough job at promoting the alternatives for surrendering firearms? In other words, the attorneys. It was part of the initial regulations, we know.
It was all.
And it was said. But did we do an aggressive enough job of saying, you don't have to bring it in? And you know there's attorney-client privilege. So if you hand it in to a lawyer, they can't talk.
They can't,
and that will bring comfort and therefore would have increased the numbers.
They are at liberty not to even say, it's anonymous. So
Right.
they don't even have to say which of their clients handed it to them.
And that's the point. Did you do a good enough job of promoting that avenue for submitting?
Well, you know, Mr. Dowe, hindsight is always 2020, and we can always look back and say perhaps we should have highlighted that aspect of it more. But I think
we have 8 days, so let's.
Yes, but I think we flagged it sufficiently. It was.
But Mr. Dowe, in response here also, I think the GB stepped out on their own, right? When Ruggles called me, Ruggles Ferguson, and these guys called me, right? They said, you know what? Normally, when someone commits a crime or has a gun or whatever, then they depend on us for defense, right? We want them to know that we also believe you should turn that thing in, right? So they've taken on an aggressive campaign. Right. So even if the government at legislative phase did not, do an aggressive job, I think I still congratulate the GB because as lawyers to go there aggressively and saying, hey man,
let me be clear though, because and Senator Joseph did allude to it. The regulations does provide for turning into attorneys. It's there, right? So that's not where I was going at all.
It's generally known,
right? Yeah, so it's there. It's one of the promotion.
The point I think you were saying whether we as government promoted that aspect
that was
of it enough, as opposed to saying to people, turn in your firearms. Now, what we have to recall as well, Mr. Dowe, is that unlike several of the other countries that instituted amnesties, our amnesty, at the end of it, we're going to have some substantial amendments to the Firearms Act. So it won't be business as usual. It will not be business as usual.
And I certainly want to get into that in a little bit, because it is important to signal this. I would also want to put out, and I don't know from your own experiences, but just in looking at some of the other avenues for surrendering illegal firearms, some territories have also said and elicited the support of pastors and priests. While it may not be in our regulation, I think our viewers know that pastors and priests can't talk either. So if there is a worry and you don't trust the police, you have attorneys at law, you have pastors and priests who are bound to secrecy that you can turn it into as well. And that I think we'd want to get out there as part of the process.
Good point.
Okay, all right. Vanny, let me just get back to you here a little bit. And what will the RGPF be doing with these guns? And I think Senator Joseph started us along that train. So gun comes in, what happens to said gun?
But I want to start my response to where she left off, because a person who surrenders a firearm are not required to disclose his or her identity and provide no information at all about the transaction, the source, or anything of that firearm. What the legislation anticipates is that you just bring that firearm in. That firearm comes into the police. Now, we need to record that firearm has been received by us, and the specifics of the firearm, the caliber, the make and model, etc., because we want to know what came in through the process. Because at the end of the process, we want to be able to say we get 200 firearms and we get 100 of this type, 50 of that type, 10 of that type, and the caliber. So that is what's going to happen. And later there has to be a decision made by the Commissioner of Police, perhaps through his channel, which is the Minister for national security as to how we disposed of that firearm. From where I sit as part of the executive of the force, I don't think any decision is made at this point as to how we're going to dispose. I guess we would wait for the period to come to an end, and some discussion is going to be started as to how we go about disposing what has been turned in to us. That discussion is not yet being had. As to whether or not the discussion you were having, whether these firearms will be traced back to we have a reporting system in the Caribbean for guns. Here there are various gun units that we report to in terms of firearms. There's regional bodies that trace guns as well. And at the end of the day, we want to see whether this particular gun may come from whichever island, whichever source, the United States, the United Kingdom. So those processes I can anticipate will happen. Notice I'm saying anticipate, right. Not that it's going to be happening. But obviously, if a gun shows up in Grenada, we want to be able to find the source of that gun. Was that a gun registered in the United States, registered in England, registered in Canada? Because what that will do is to tell us where our market is, where the source of these guns are coming from. So it will help us with our intelligence. So it will help us to identify routes and sources so that we can mitigate against what we actually get in here in Grenada. So I think the information from these guns will lead to us expanding our intelligence range as to dealing with illegal firearms, knowing source country, perhaps knowing passages. We may have a gun that may be registered in Canada, but that gun might also show up perhaps in St. Lucia. That gun might also show up in St. Vincent. So then we can see a defined path that which some of our firearms are coming from. Those are helpful.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you in terms of if we have any indication today as to how these weapons are coming into Grenada.
We do know how some of these weapons are coming in. The porosity of our borders challenges us in a lot of ways. I've seen an article where a particular lawyer was talking about Coast Guard and if you know Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, you'll have to have 200 Coast Guards to be able to do that. And I don't think that will be sufficient the way our borders are set up. So we know that we are getting some of our firearms to some of these go fast. We know that we are getting some of these firearms to our port because we do not do a deep enough dive into what comes through the port. The port is about commerce and about monies. And you have to understand the balance here in releasing goods at a particular time so that the economy can roll on. Because if you have to search every piece of cargo that comes in the way we would want it to be searched, that will slow down economic development. So that's an issue. And so the whole issue of scanners comes in, barrel scanners, container scanners, that we don't have to delve into the particular container or barrel, but we can get a scan of the contents of it. That is where we are going now. That is what we are thinking now. I believe there may be some scanners here on the island. I don't know to what use they're being put to, but this is where we need to go. Right? Through our legitimate ports and through the porosity of our borders, the bay, the creeks and the inlets and all of the go-fast and the fishing boats and the yachts. There are various ways in which these firearms are coming in. And I don't think we can plug all of the holes through which these illegal firearms are coming in. We just have to build our intelligence more. We have to have more collaboration with our community and work with our people on the ground to be able to find those that are here.
There seems to be a suggestion that is local people sending guns in. Again, looking at some of the regional examples, there is a claim that islanders, now resident in the U.S., for example, which is a major source of these illegal weapons. We don't make guns in Caribbean, right? Family members, associates, etc., are the ones sending these guns in. Would you say that this is the same in Grenada? You mentioned barrels, containers, and the like, and Grenadians that send barrels to Grenadians. So is it a case where we're seeing, like in other territories, Grenadians involved in illegal activities elsewhere?
That is exactly what is happening here. And there is this ingenious way of which some of this firearm comes in. Not all firearm come in with all its component parts intact. You get a trigger in one barrel, you get a nozzle in another barrel, and you get another part of it in another barrel. So I think these criminals understand the system well, because if you're looking for a firearm, you'll find a firearm. But you might see a piece of metal, and if you don't know a firearm, you don't know that it's a component part of a firearm.
Right.
So these are some of the ways that some of these firearms are coming in, and so we can't just go looking for a firearm, but we have to also look for component parts of a firearm. One barrel may have only one part, but you're saying 2, 3, 4 barrels per year. Every time a barrel comes, a component part of the firearm comes in the barrel. So seeing the one part on one occasion may not raise any suspicion to perhaps a custom officer or an untrained eye.
And the question is whether or not there is any training going on with customs officers, because news out there that there may have been an arrest recently where a gun came in 3 different barrels to 3 different consignees, which is essentially what you're alluding to. Are we doing training with our customs officers so that they can recognize the component parts? Because the illegality is not a firearm, but is the components of a firearm is also illegal, and hence that ought to have been stopped even if it didn't look like a gun.
Yeah, well, I do know that the enforcement arm of customs and the RGPF work in tandem with each other, but you have to appreciate the fact that the enforcement arm are not necessarily those people on the port on a daily basis doing what needs to be done in terms of looking at the contents of barrel and writing the charges and so on and so forth. The enforcement arm is the arm that, if it is found, they may get involved, but not necessarily on the front line. I cannot speak to the extent of the training across customs in terms of, all of the people that are involved, but I do know that the enforcement arm, because when I was a prosecutor, we've had several discussions, we've had several meetings, collaboration, on various aspects of what comes in illegally. So if it is not happening, it needs to be broadened up a bit to include not only the enforcement arm of customs, but the whole of customs that has anything at all to do with goods coming into the country.
Okay, all right. Time to put our foot down. So I'm going to come back to you, Senator Joseph. And I know that there have been some amendments being made, or some amendments have been made to the Act. So share with our audience what are some of the things we can look forward to if we do not take advantage of the amnesty over the next 8 days.
Yes, so as I indicated earlier, the legislation was amended so that the sections that create offenses, they were all amended and will come into effect on the 1st of August. The penalties have drastically changed. So, for example, the most common offense committed under the Firearms Act, the possession of firearms and ammunition under Section 20. The current penalty, if you are convicted summarily, that's in a magistrate's court, there's a fine of a minimum of $4,000 and a maximum of $20,000, or imprisonment of 2 to 5 years. Come August 1st, that will change. There will be no fine involved.
Okay.
And your minimum term of imprisonment will be 10 years, no less than 10 years.
Hold on, I want us to repeat that now.
Yes.
So possession today is a minimum of $4,000, no more than 20.
No more than 20.
Possession as of the 1st of August, you can't pay your way out.
You can't pay your way out.
Jail for a minimum
of 10 years, up to 20.
Okay.
And if the matter is disposed of in the High Court, that is on indictment, there will be, the current penalty, fine of $20,000 minimum to $60,000, and imprisonment of 5 to 20 years. Come 1st August, that will change to no fine, minimum 20 years imprisonment, maximum 40. That's if the offense is sent up to the High Court.
Okay, so what gets something sent up to the High Court? Is that if I plead guilty, it's down below?
The DPP determines based on the seriousness of the offense. So it might have to do with the quantity of arms and ammunition. Right? Mainly the quantity in the case of possession.
Right.
So the less serious the offense, the more likely it is going to be disposed of in the magistrate's court.
Okay.
So a small amount quantity of ammunition, most likely magistrate's court. But as when you start talking larger quantities, more than one firearms.
And the idea of bail has also been removed?
Yes, bail, well, I wouldn't use the word removed. As it stands now, the magistrate has a discretion to grant bail in the case of offences under the Firearms Act. Come 1st August, that discretion will be removed so that the magistrate will not be able to grant bail at all. Just like in the case of murder or treason, one of those high crimes, as you call them, right? The magistrate does not have a discretion now. If a person commits or is charged with murder or treason and wants bail, now they must go to the High Court.
Right.
Come August 1st, the offences under the Firearms Act will be added to that, so that only a judge of the High Court may grant bail for offences under the Act.
Okay.
All right, so it's not that it's taken away, it's just that it's sent upstairs, and you know it's more difficult.
Right. So it automatically will be a longer process.
It would be a longer process,
right,
and you're less likely. You are less likely to be granted bail.
All right. So an individual, and we do have individuals that we have heard of out there who have multiple gun charges and still walking around outside because would you say we be tied to this discretionary power and the light judicial, not judicial, but rather what was already in the legislation, but that is going to be changing drastically.
That is going to be changed.
Okay. And
so we would have less people with offenses, being charged with offenses on bail. Just as we hardly find persons charged with murder getting bail.
Yeah.
Because bail is not granted lightly when you are charged with a serious offense. So we have placed offenses under the Firearms Act in the same category or treat them with the same level of seriousness as murder. Because, and it stands to reason, as we say, guns were made to kill people.
Very well.
So if you possess the power in your hand to kill, you're going to be treated under the law in similar fashion.
Okay.
Let me
go ahead.
The question that you asked about what determines whether a matter remains summarily or indictable, and Senator Joseph rightfully spoke of a number of issues, but there is something that I want to throw in here. The caliber of the weapon will also be a consideration whether we take the matter summarily or whether we take the matter on indictment. So the high-powered rifle, those will be considered at more indictable offenses to be done by the judge and jury rather than being done at the ministerial level summarily. Okay. So we're talking about a 9mm as opposed to AR-15 or one of those automatic rifles. Consideration will be given here as to, those are some of the factors.
Thanks for that addition. And viewers, we're dealing with gun amnesty. So we'll be right back. We take our final break and then we come to our final segment when you can participate.
Spice is back in full swing. Deco Industries is always ready to serve you. For all your customized t-shirt printing, Deco Industries. Deco Industries, your one-stop gas station services. Now opening 24 hours from Friday, July 19th until August 31st at the Tempe Junction. Deco Industries, your #1 distributor for liquid nitro energy drink, mountaintop spring water, Swirl-Till, keeping you energized, keeping you pumping. Contact us today on 440-3009. A platinum represent. Go ahead, do it up like I go Michelle.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Paying is faster and easier with Glow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press Consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Glow, keeping you connected.
Welcome back. We're talking gun amnesty, and Senator Joseph, our Attorney General, was just highlighting some of the changes to the act that will be, to the legislation that will take effect on August 1st. So when we left off was possession and some of the changes, but please continue in terms of the adjustments that we can look forward to.
Well, I'm bearing in mind that we have 1 week of the amnesty, and you may submit your firearm, surrender the firearm. I would speak to Section 19 of the legislation that speaks to taking in pawned firearms and ammunition. So you go to pawn the firearm, you have 1 week. Don't try to do it after anywhere else, because the current penalty for that is 6 months imprisonment on summary conviction and 5 years on indictment. The new penalty would be 50,000 and 1 year, so double. And there's a fine added there as well. That's on summary conviction, and on indictable 100,000 and 5 years. So all of the offenses have been drastically increased, right? Including in relation to licensed firearm, but we want to stick with illegal firearm now. For example, manufacturing. All right, people, they put it together. What now? They modify.
That I want to touch on as well. Does the legislation contemplate, for example, 3D printing of firearms? We are in 2024, and how are you likewise addressing assembly kits?
Yeah, well, the legislation speaks to these matters. Let me try and find the section here. It speaks to imitation firearms. It speaks to manufacturing, and generally the minimum you would find under the legislation going forward would be 5 years. Generally, there are a few offenses that carry 1 year, but for the most part, it would be 5 years.
Okay. Let me just ask, for an individual who is aware of where an illegal firearm may be, is there a way of protecting that individual that they can share with the police? but not get in trouble. And if the firearm is tied to something later on, the police doesn't have to say, well, Claudette said that the firearm was under the galvanized by the goat pen, and go get it.
The answer is yes. In fact, what we've been encouraging people to do, if you know where illegal firearms is, you do not need to disclose any identity at all. You can call us and just point us to where it is. We don't ask who you are. We don't ask you where you're from. We don't ask you where you're calling us from. We don't ask you your identity. We don't ask you how you know it's there. So any anonymous way you can inform us will work. We don't turn back tomorrow and come looking for you if something turns up with that firearm, because the nature of the amnesty is to provide just for that, for people to anonymously provide information or firearms to the police without any questions being asked. So we want people to feel comfortable that if you provide information today, we will not become looking for you tomorrow.
Excellent. We have our first caller online. Good evening, caller, and welcome.
Yes, good evening to you, and good evening to the panelists. Whilst many of these measures, all of the measures mentioned can work, I would like to see all arms of the economy be mobilized and put at a shape where jobs could be created for all and sundry, which I think will help mitigate the use of the purchasing of a firearm. That I would like to see very, very urgently, because I think jobs and occupation play a very, very serious role as it relates to people acquiring, young people acquiring guns.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Anise, I think you're alluding to that. Hope. Who am I? Definition of self. Seeing a future really will assist in one walking on a path that would not lead to the possession and use of illegal firearms.
And that is correct. I mean, the caller is talking about employment basically, and saying that if I'm reasonably employed, it decreases my chance. Well, decreases my chance of what, really? Well, if of course I see myself in the illegal drug trade to make a living, then of course my weapon is now my security to protect my stash on my back. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, if we get people more employed, and when I say employed, I'm not just talking about. I'm talking about, as I said early on. You know, today I was in Montu, and there was a young man on the block. And I want to hail him out. Dexter Phillip, went to GBS, and he was in the block. And he was looking at me so intently. I spoke to him. I said, "You know what, guy? You are so brilliant, eh? What are you doing with your life? Where are you working?" And I said to him, when I start my program in Montu, I want you to come. I want him to shadow me. I want him to feel the worth of doing something, something that is profitable, something that is beneficial, not to himself but the community. Yes. You see, when you have that kind of a feeling that you worth something,
everything goes up.
Everything
from there.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. We have another call online. Good evening, Colin. Welcome.
Yes. Good night to you, and good night to your panelists. I have a question for the Attorney General. If someone is caught with an illegal firearm, they said he or she will be facing 10 to 20 years. If that person uses a firearm to wound somebody, would he be double charged? Would he be charged for possessing an illegal firearm plus for wounding?
Yes.
Would he be getting 2 charges?
Yes.
All right. So
you may be charged for all offenses committed in the course of whatever enterprise you undertake.
Right, and those are 2 different aspects of legislation now, because so there's the firearm possession, right?
One will be under the criminal.
Precisely. Yes. So you're winning 2 in 1 in this case, Colin, right? That is the case. Well, let me just ask, and Vanny, let me go to you now, because just to prevent people from being misguided, how easy it is for a law-abiding citizen to access a firearm?
I don't want to scare anybody, but the intelligence that is now surfacing in Grenada is that we know for a fact that you can get a firearm if you walk out of your front door, if you have the right connections. That is how prevalent the issue of firearms in Grenada is. And I would assume that that would be one of the underlying reasons why governments are fit to have the amnesty to give up people an opportunity to bring in those firearms and increase those penalties.
Let me ask you this. As a law-abiding citizen, can I go to a licensed gun dealer, RGPF, make an application? Is that process an easy process? And what I'm trying to get at is that people who believe that they have a need for a firearm, is there a way that they can be comforted, legal way, for them to be in possession, as opposed to going to the front door and getting something?
In fact, you collect a firearms application license from any of the police station. It requires you to fill that form and submit it back. We do a number of vetting, covert and overt vetting. Some you know, some you don't know. And there is reasons for that. The open vetting, we may speak to people in your communities because we want your background. Yeah, we want to know how you grew up. We want to know what tendencies you have. So you may know of those. And there are some vettings that you will not know anything about. It is our way of doing a deeper dive in who the individual is. Because we want to make sure that putting a gun in the hand of somebody, we are certainly sure that that person is capable of using that gun, one, has the right temperament, and know when exactly to use that gun. We've had an incident recently, I'm not going to call anybody's name on the program, where a gentleman have a licensed firearm, and we have had to pull that firearm because there is a tendency to always reach for your firearm in situations and circumstances when we feel that, the circumstances did not present itself for you to go to that level of force. That kind of temperament makes us kind of wonder. And so we, from time to time, we revisit firearm license holders and make a determination whether or not, they're going to be an extension of the license. You may not be charged for a crime, but there are tendencies that tells us that if we continue to let the situation be as is, down the road, we might be dealing with something that we don't want to deal with. Okay. All right, so this is the process. So once it is submitted, the vettings are done, you get a letter from the commissioner determining whether or not you're granted or not granted a license. It will direct you to pay the fee to the treasury, but you have to now buy your own gun because you have to find a licensed dealer and you have to select a gun from the licensed dealer, and that has to be on your application.
Have we had issues where people get a license for, let's say, a 38, but yet still they go on to be in possession of something else? So they're the whole of a license, but the weapon that they walk around with is not the licensed firearm.
Right, and the issue with that is, according to the legislation, if you have a firearms license to allow you to carry that firearms in public, it also requires and mandates that you carry the license with you. So when the police check you for the firearm and it says a .38, you must have a license saying you have a license for a .38. If your license say that you're licensed for a .38 and you have a 9mm, you're in violation. Right. You are in violation, and that's an illegal firearm if you cannot produce a permit for it. If the permit is left at your home, you also committed an offense. You need to have your permit with you, and that's law enforcement way of ensuring that what you were granted is what you're carrying.
Okay. The other thing that those of us in the public would be worried about. So someone is businessman, they own their business, they have their connections, they know let me not say the commissioner of police. They have their connections, so they get a license firearm. What obligation do they have to learn how to shoot? Because they may very well be putting the rest of us in the public in danger.
That is such an important question that you asked. Last week, the executive of the force was examining that very said question, because we see firearms license as we see a driver's license. You get a learner's permit, you learn to drive, you get a driver's license. We are at the stage now where we believe the same should happen with firearm is concerned. You should go through a certain requisite number of theoretical classes, learn the component parts of the firearm, learn to shoot, learn to use the firearm. Somebody should now certify that you are now in a position to hold a firearm. We are not there. This is not what the law requires, but this is the thinking of the executive of the RGPF. And it is something we are contemplating, and very soon we'll be approaching government, to do some legislative changes to bring that into effect. Because it's dangerous somebody having a firearm and knows nothing about that firearm.
Absolutely.
I was just trying to interject to say, as we're speaking of acquiring firearm and how one might go forward to doing so, I would just like to flag to the listeners that the unlawful acquisition and disposal of firearms and ammunition, of course, is an offense under the Act. And like with all the other offenses, the penalty will be drastically increased after August 1st, from August 1st rather. So currently the summary conviction carries 6 months minimum, 2 years maximum. And August 1st it will go 10 years summary conviction, minimum, 20 years maximum. And on indictment, currently it's 3 to 5 years. After August 1st, it will be 15 to 40 years. So a 5-fold increase.
And that there is lesson for my licensed firearm, the holders of firearm license who are walking around with unlicensed firearms. Those are the penalties that they can look forward to as of August 1, because they will have illegally.
Right, so you have a license for one type of firearm, but you possess another. That's illegal possession.
Another component to what the AG has just read about illegal acquisition. We have seen cases where you as a father have a licensed firearm, you're deceased, that firearm stays in the home, and that son now feel he has the right to carry that firearm because it's his father's firearm. No, he would need a separate license in his name to be able to carry that firearm. Firearm don't go from generation to generation. Every holder of a firearm must have an independent license in his or her name authorizing them to carry that firearm.
And this is a good time to make a call for those types of firearms to be surrendered to the RGPF.
Yes,
absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So if you know that you have a firearm in the home, dad, mom, whoever was the holder, they passed away, it is not yours, right? You have to turn it in, make your own application to be in possession of said firearm or a firearm of that caliber, or one that you'll be entitled to carry. Niels, let me get back to you here, and what's next? And this is important. So amnesty is done. How would you recommend to government that they move forward with complementary activities to ensure that in 3 years from now, we're not having another gun amnesty, because of some spike in crime, etc.
And I want to really compliment the cabinet. I made a proposal. I presented a proposal. I got a program, our international flagship program, Project Stop and Think. You may have heard about it. That we've done from East Africa right across. And I have major success with it. And so I made a proposal to the government through social development, Minister Gloria Thomas. And she presented it. And that proposal is really meant to a full program where we would go into communities and start from the very basic, who I am, self-respect, self-esteem, where I'm coming from, things that, agitate in me, what we call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and build that right up to where the person becomes start dreaming about success. It's a 3-month program, and so and the first part is 3 months, and then we leave the sustainable part in the committee afterward, where it runs or grows organically. The proposal was for 7 communities, and and it was signed off. So we have on Sundays, we go in right around the week, from Sunday to Sunday. On Sunday we have Telescope. On Monday we got Versailles. On Tuesday we got Guava. On Wednesday we got Victoria. On Thursday we got Carenage. Right? On Friday we got Snug Corner. On Saturday we got Montu. So we'll be going through these programs, and I want you to know, and I want folks out there to know that the young men are excited. They're excited. It's a Canadian program, by the way. I'm the owner, I'm the copyright owner, and they will be getting a Canadian social skills certificate at the end. It's really meant to pull feuding communities together. We did it in St. Lucia. We did 6 communities and 7 high schools and jail and Bodley simultaneously. And we had 400 graduates. It was spectacular. But you know what was great, Mr. Dowe? On the day of graduation, to see feuding communities, guys from feuding communities sitting together, because they were growing emotionally, growing social together, because they were hearing the exact material. We go right to the heart. We sit on the bridge with them. As a matter of fact, I got a new title conferred on me in one of the ghettos of St. Lucia. Sitting on the block with the guy said to me, Dr. Chaitan, you are the professor of Ghetto University. I love that. I want to put it in my business card, right? Because that's what we do. We go sit on the block with them, and we talk to them, and things they never heard from a dad, from an uncle, things they never heard about themselves. And so that is in place. It should have already started. And the AG said, she was hoping it was going to start. Of course, the coming of hurricane, we moved from a kind of a crime fighting to a kind of survival, So tomorrow, I'll be on the Osprey into Carriacou. I'm dealing with the trauma of the hurricane out in Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. But and shortly after, it's Carnival, of course. So we hope the first week after Carnival, we'll be launching all 7 communities, rolling across Grenada. It's going to be a wonderful experience. We are appealing to mothers. If you have sons, we emphasize sons, by the way. Right. We want everybody, but we emphasize sons. Let them come. Boys are getting suspended in school. By the way, the magistrates are already ordering people into the program. All right? So it is going to make a mark. I know it's going to make a mark. We are bringing best practices to Grenada. And I can't wait to see what the end results are going to be like.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we are quickly approaching the end. How quickly 90 minutes goes by. So, ACP, you would have the first go. Just final messages out there for the general public as we come to the close of the gun amnesty, and of course the AG will have the final word.
Well, let me just say in closing that the new act speaks to about 27 or 28 amendments, but all of them are important for law enforcement because at the end of the day we have to enforce the entire act. But critical to us are 2 sections that we're paying particular attention to, which is the AG mentioned one, which is illegal possession, and the other is discharging a firearm. Because this is what we're seeing quite a lot of. Right. Not just that we have the illegal possession, but we see those trigger-happy young people who just feel that they can just bust a shot, as they say, anywhere. Now, I just want to remind them of the sentence here. We're moving from $1,000, what was $1,000 and 3 months, to what is now $50,000 to $100,000 on summary conviction, or from 5 years to 10 years. So we did not speak about it, but I want to end by saying that the illegal possession of firearm is bad in itself in the new act. Contemplating what the sentence is going to be for discharging an illegal firearm, I want to appeal to Grenadians to think twice. Think twice. What we saw in 2022, 2023, and 2024 thus far, let it be what it is. This amnesty ends in 8 days. The new act kicks in. The new penalty kicks in. And the new approach from law enforcement kicks in. That's my closing.
Thank you very much, SB Colin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mr. Dowe, and what I would say, we as government, we see a challenge that was escalating, and our approach is holistic. The amnesty, which I will encourage all persons out there who may be in possession of illegal firearms to take advantage of in the next 8 days. That was one step. The other step was to adjust the penalties under the Firearms Act. And to our minds, we have given all our citizens a fair chance of ridding themselves of illegal firearms. A whole 90 days, well promoted. The whole nation knows that the amnesty is in place, after which some very draconian penalties will ensue. But we have not stopped there. We have taken a holistic view of this, which is why the Cabinet approved the program WIRI. That's the name of the program?
Project Stop and Think.
Project Stop and Think, and then there's another one.
Yeah, there's another one.
There's another one, WIRI. So yours is Project Stop and Think, as described by Mr. Dr. Chaitan. There's also another program, WIRI program, with similar aims and objectives. So we are targeting our young people, trying to get them to walk a different path, providing opportunities. We also have, in keeping with the change in the mandatory school leaving age, we have designated a whole new set of institutions as training centers. We have just launched a new version of the Empower program, which is a program that took place before, something that was instituted by the previous administration, which we have embraced with some enhancements. And one of the enhancements we are looking at is to have the court also order young men into the Empower program. So we are trying as best we can to provide opportunities and alternative lifestyles for persons who would otherwise be attracted to a life that will bring them into contact with illegal firearms. We are doing our best so that we provide all the opportunities for our young people and thereby lessen their reasons and excuses to be drawn to a life of crime and engaging in deviant behaviors.
All right.
So, bring in the illegal firearms fellas. Bring them in, because magistrate can't help you after August 1st. All right?
Okay. Dr. Neils Chaitan, Assistant Commissioner of Police Vanny Cohen, Attorney General Senator Claudia Joseph, thank you all so very much for being with us this evening and sharing on the gun amnesty and what the type of things that we can look forward to, positive and also the consequences. Yeah. And to you, the viewers, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. It's not often you hear the enforcers say that my punishment is draconian. Take note. Take note. And for us to move forward as a nation, for us to protect and preserve this good nation that we have called Grenada, the peace and tranquility that we have enjoyed and we have shared with our visitors, it is important that we act. Gun amnesty is one step in that direction. So you can, as an individual, you can, as someone who knows or possesses, take advantage. It's almost the end of the 22nd, so 7 days. Take advantage of this and help preserve the Grenada we love. Thank you very much for spending this evening with us, and I look forward to being with you again in the next 6 days, 22.5 hours. God bless. Take good care.